I'm Seth Gourmet.
I'm Sean Behrens.
I'm Abram Kaplan.
And I'm Judy Mayer.
And you're listening to Obscuria Filmcast.
Greetings and welcome to Obscuria Filmcast. I'm your host, Abram Kaplan, and we will be joined momentarily by co-hosts John and Judy. Seth will unfortunately be out for the count tonight, but we wish him a speedy recovery. Today we will be discussing Babyface, 19, directed by Green, written by Gene Markey and Katherine Scola, Stanwyck and George Brent. A young woman, sexually exploited all her life, decides to turn the tables and exploit the hapless men at a big city bank by gleefully seducing her way to the top. That sums up this pre-code Hollywood gem in a nutshell. This is a straight-up salacious sexploitation flick that, for my money, rivals any scandalous sex film from really any era of Hollywood movie making. And it's no surprise that this was one of the straws that broke the camel's back with the Hays Commission, who began to much more stringently enforce its decency code shortly after its release. Taglines and newspaper print ad copy for the film include such notables as "She had it, made it pay." But parents, please don't bring your children. She's everything she had to get had. She stopped at nothing and made it pay. Barbara Stanwyck and 13 Men in Babyface. She's the kind of girl that men regret. That's from a print ad in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Let's see, what else do we have here? No matter how many motion pictures you've seen in your life, you've never seen anything like this frank, man-to-man story of a man-to-man girl. It's pretty good. And finally, climbed the ladder of success wrong by wrong. Edit. Anyway, Babyface is available for rent or purchase on the most major streaming services, including Prime and YouTube, and can also be viewed for free at the Internet Archive at archive.org. If you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Leave a like and comment on one of our YouTube streams and share a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all of your support and welcome your engagement with the YouTube live streams. If you would like to suggest a film for future episodes and have the opportunity to participate in our live stream, please email us at obscuriafilmpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And now, here is our live discussion. Hello.
Hello. Abram, thanks for choosing this film because we do review a lot of obscure films, but this one I get like it's obscure. But what I liked about it is it's from I just like old movies because it's just a different visual experience with the same kind of human condition stories. And I like movies from the 30s too, because that was back when the studio system was still employed, when actors and writers and directors were treated more like a baseball team than artists. And I just always thought that was cool. And it was really nice because they really did explore a lot visually in this film too. And they did it so well, and it was about 75 minutes. It got me wondering why. Like, how did you hear about this movie, and why did you choose it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the reason I chose this film is, and by the way, I had never seen this film prior to selecting it for this show. I watched this film for the first time for this show. Sometimes I walk to Barnes and Noble in Union Square, which is a few blocks from my apartment. And I go, that's like one of the last stores in New York City where you can go and buy DVDs, where they have like a large collection of DVDs, right?
That's cool.
And I guess because buying DVDs is becoming less and less popular, they have a larger and larger section of discounted DVDs now. So you can find like some really awesome classic stuff for anywhere from
Really?
$3, $4, $5. Yeah, like brand new. You like I bought like the James Bond collection. Like you get all these DVD collections that are like really reduced. Like you can get like 5 of like get
Like John Wayne.
5 Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns for like $15-$20 and get like all 5 movies that he did.
That's pretty
for
hot.
Sergio Leone or whatever, however many it was, and like a lot of stuff like that. And then there was a so they're getting back to the original point. There was a Groucho Marx collection, and I love the Marx Brothers collection, and it had like 3 or 4 of their films, and they had multiple collections. So I bought one of the collections, and I think one of the movies I was watching was either like Duck Soup. These are all movies I'd seen a bunch of times because I've been watching Marx Brothers films since I was a kid. And this was like, it was either Duck Soup or like the Coconuts or one of those.
Animal Crackers.
I think it was, no, you're right. That's actually what it was. Animal Crackers. That's exactly it. Right. It was Animal Crackers. And I just started like, I was like, it's kind of funny how much sexual innuendo there was in the Marx Brothers films, and how like everything is just basically like super duper pervy, like about, especially like Groucho Marx, and actually all of them, they're all perverts. Groucho's a pervert, Harpo's a pervert, and Chico's also a pervert. And, I'm like, they said there's just like one nasty joke after another. And they're really like kind of demeaning, but in a very playful and like stupid way. Because
the woman slaps them at the end of the joke.
The women slap them.
And
the idea is that they're just like schmucks, like they're pathetic schmucks, and they're harmless, right? So it's not like predatory in the way that a lot of people would try to depict that kind of stuff today. It's just stupid, but it is really like raunchy. And I was like, what was going on? Like, I don't know. I was like, I just wanted to read more about the film. So I was on Wikipedia and IMDb. And then I'm like reminded that these films came out during the pre-code era, which is just like a small blip in the history of filmmaking between the very beginning. So this is something that people don't realize about the pre-code era is that like most people that know a little bit about what that is, they understand that the first talking films called talkies started in 1929, famously with The Jazz Singer, which was still more or less a silent film. But that was
more like 27.
Wait, The Jazz Singer was 27? You sure?
Yes.
Yeah, I shouldn't challenge you on that. Okay, well, so I guess the Hayes Commission officially created the code in either I think 1929, or there was a commission that they started talking about it in 27 about how they were going to have to come up with some kind of a standard for what you can and cannot say in films. Like that seems like something that we would take for granted, but it's like, imagine you had films for a long period of time that a lot of people were not happy about the kind of stuff that was going on in silent films. And now all of a sudden people are going to add actual dialogue to that. And so people got really freaked out, especially, religious organizations. And they're like, well, we got to have some kind of standards for what people can and cannot say in these movies and do. And basically from the beginning, yeah, of course they had standards. And of course the studios were going to flaunt those standards from the jump, because there was a huge appetite for scandalous stuff in films. There has always been in art, and there always will be. People, and particularly in a time in American history when people were really tremendously suspicious and antagonistic towards government. People are dealing with like the Great Depression, dysfunctional management of society, and a lot of times like the only escape for people was to go see like a trashy film, and and these were films that were going to sell no matter what. If you have sex, you have violence, But in a sense, a lot of these characters, like these people were becoming like hometown heroes. The gangsters in films were becoming celebrated as like heroes, because authority was basically starting. People were starting to have a really negative association with authority
because the gangsters felt like they weren't understood, and then the masses watching that also had that same feeling.
Exactly. That's a big part of it. Yeah, people wanted to see that kind of stuff. They wanted to see people being being bad because
Being bad.
society was bad. Society is bad, and it wasn't their fault. They were born into it. Their leaders had failed them, and fuck you, basically.
And they can't catch a break either. That's
and they
another
can't.
theme.
Yes, it's another theme. They can't catch a break. So the whole idea of like down and out individuals who did whatever they had to do to survive was appealing to people. And whether that's a woman played by Barbara Stanwyck in Babyface, who grows up in a coal mining town with as the bar wench at her father's tavern, being sexually harassed by men.
Yeah.
Speakeasy. Being sexually harassed. Exactly. Yeah. Being sexually harassed by all these like coal workers, like night and day, and politicians and all these like people, and not being protected by her father, who goes out in the world and decides to exploit men for her own benefit. Or it's a gangster. Sorry, go ahead. No.
Well, there was a step you missed with the Nietzsche, because she was introduced to Nietzsche.
Oh yeah. I mean, we haven't even really gotten into the story, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
So should we go over the plot?
Well, I just want to say it makes sense now. I'm seeing the connection with the whole. She's kind of an anti-hero a little bit in the beginning, or through most of it. But now I'm like, oh, it makes sense that she's taking advantage of the people who run the banks and the mortgages.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like, well, yeah, she's clearly doing it wrong, and she's clearly taking advantage of these people and just wrecking lives, but they're bankers.
That's so
they
funny.
already have a lot of money, so I can see
they've been responsible for screwing up the system and making all these mistakes. It's so funny that didn't even occur to me, but that's clearly must have been a motivation.
It's one of those things where and there's been talk recently. I won't really get political, but there's talk about people taking modern day or modern day cultural thoughts and comparing it to moments in history. And there's historians going, well, you can't really do that because it's a different time, like even if you look at the Bible, things like that, you have to sort of look at things through the lens of society at that point, and sometimes it crosses time and other times it doesn't. But it really, looking back at this movie, because when I first saw it, I was like, this part of me doesn't like watching old movies because they're slow. I like, the quicker pace. And I like more modern storytelling. But once I started watching the movie, I sort of, sorry, I have my son on me. I really appreciated the simplicity of the story, because they do get, there's these great characters. And even though they talk in these accents that I don't know if people talked in back then, but just, they're really swanky. And
if I say
so
that's called the mid-Atlantic accent. It's called the mid-Atlantic, and nobody's actually spoke like that. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, it's good.
Please go right ahead.
Seth's probably somehow he's probably burning to be here to discuss this, and he can get into some of the technical and historical aspects of that. We'll talk more about that later. Yeah. But there are very specific reasons why the dialogue sounds the way it does, and why the staging happens the way it does and looks kind of contrived and feels kind of contrived. It's actually, when you appreciate the technology that they were working with at that time, you start to realize, wow, it's amazing that it didn't come out even weirder. They really were trying to overcome a lot of technical problems.
I was thinking through a lot of those moments where they do the close shots of her about to kiss someone or kissing someone, or especially the bar scenes. All I kept thinking of, as back in my acting days and my filmmaking days, was how they talked about during the early periods of filmmaking, the women in the makeup, they would be wearing black lipstick, and they would have you could just touch your face and the makeup would melt off, and the lights were so hot. It was so hot on set, and they were caked on. So I was just watching it and I was just I wonder if her lipstick is black right now, and I wonder what it was like to shoot on that set, knowing how modern day filmmaking is compared to the heat and almost probably the danger of the equipment.
Oh yeah,
also,
absolutely.
Those cameras were about the size of a car, a little smaller than a car.
Yeah,
those were the size, and they had to be on train tracks, and they were a ton. And good luck, hopefully the guys there couldn't pull back and fro. But also to mention,
now let's add to that just one more thing. Let's add to that. Now that we're actually getting into the technical stuff, Now, for the first time, they have to shoot sound simultaneously. And if our experience before going live is any indication of how challenging it can be to deal with audio problems, consider that the microphones that they were using back then were very different than microphones today. They were incredibly sensitive, but also incredibly weak direction-wise and proximity-wise. The microphones had to be incredibly close. If they weren't close enough, you wouldn't hear anything. So that's where like all these close shots come into play. I think in terms of audio, because they had to capture that sound, and then the accents that Sean was just alluded to a minute ago. That was an accent that was developed to make audio transmission work better over this new technology, because the way that most people would talk would get muffled, and you'd start to hear stuff sounding like this,
and their slang and stuff.
Yeah. And so this accent was designed to make radio transmission more transmit better and to be
it's very
more resonant.
pronunciated.
Very exactly. It's
I noticed
resonant.
in the car today after I watched the movie, I was like, get in the car.
Get in the car.
Like I was just like, what am I doing? I was like, why am I talking? Like everything's so important, and I was like, oh, it's probably from watching that movie, because everything is just the way they talk.
That was a good movie. And you know what I liked about movies back then too? It's like how they were consumed, because they would play 2 movies all day, and you bought a ticket and you walked in there and you could come and go, and it's all day. It was the good movie and then the B movie. That's where the term comes from. And it seems like this is
where's the term B movie come from?
Because there would be the movie that was in Technicolor or with the stars in it, and then a lower budget movie with up and comers called a B movie with like a more bare bones, rudimentary.
Do you think this film would have constituted would have like been classified as a B movie though?
Yes, and I could tell you why. Okay,
so what would the major films from 1933 be?
A lot of westerns. The best picture was a western called Cimarron. Did you guys ever hear of? Okay, did you guys ever
tell
hear
me? Go back though and tell me why. Like,
because those were it was 1933, which means a lot of the Wild West dudes were kind of still alive or just dying. Like Wyatt Earp lived to 1927.
So the western was still like a big genre.
Yes.
The biggest genre of the time.
Wasn't John Wayne in this movie?
John Wayne
made before.
He was when he was under contract. When he had his weekly contract before him and John Ford met. And
he played which character again? Did he play?
He played one of the guys in the first
guy at the bank. The first guy at the bank.
The first guy at the bank that she seduces.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's only one scene I remember him in.
Yeah.
Where
he was in 2.
He was in 2. Okay.
Yeah, and then he introduced her. Yeah, and then he introduced her, and then they met. He introduced her. Are we going to go out tonight? And then you see him and then you see him again in the end when they flash.
Yeah.
But another reason why this is a B movie is because, as you mentioned before, it's a singular moral story, right? As opposed to a grand epic. Because this story is about Babyface. It's not about how the West was won or General MacArthur or the Civil War. It's just about her, and women were viewed different back then, I guess. But because notice she was the only woman in the movie. Everybody else was dudes, except for her friend. I forget her name. But that's another reason why
it's a very unusual name for an African American.
What was her name?
Maid Chico.
Chico?
Yes.
It's weird. Oh, also, weird. And this movie was short. It was like 76
minutes. Yeah.
We should let's try to roll the trailer for the audience real quick, just so I want to test that out anyway. I want to see if we're able to do that.
It's going to be like 3 minutes, and trailers
2
back
minutes.
then. All right. Well, trailers back then aren't like trailers now. So, but please.
Okay, let's try it.
Also, I love me some Barbara Stanwyck. Watching this movie, I was like Basic Instinct. No joke. And you only really saw upper skirt a little bit. Like in one shot, you saw a little bit upper skirt. You didn't even see her shoulders. and I'm still like I'm like, yeah, Barbara Stanwyck's looking good.
Are you guys getting the audio for that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if it's coming through my microphone or.
I love the glamour in that. It sounds like it's through your microphone.
All right,
But I love the
we'll turn my
glamour, the
microphone
Art
around.
Deco.
I'm a tramp and who's to blame? My father. A swell start you gave me. Ever since I was 14, what's it been? Nothing but men, dirty, rotten men. And you're lower than any of them. I'll hate you as long as I live.
She played the love game with everything she had. For everything they had. And made it pay.
Oh, not here. Somebody may... What could I do? He's my boss and I have to earn my own living. Are you letting me go?
I'll need everything I've given you. All your bonds and securities.
I can't do it. I have to think of myself. I've gone through a lot to get those things. My life has been bitter and hard. I'm not like other women. Get out of here
That
or
shit's
I'll...
great.
Lily, you got to marry me. If you don't, I'll kill myself.
She's a real femme fatale.
And then he kills himself. A woman without a conscience. She used her power over men to get what life denied her. It was fatal to offer her love. In a story as fascinating as her entrancing personality.
Entrancing, yeah.
Entrancing, I said it wrong. I like that music though. Sometimes I find that music and just listen to it because there's no words you could like concentrate. Yeah, but
That's pretty
so
classic.
yeah, so Babyface, she was being used in a speakeasy by her father as a product, and she could give as much as she got, and she finally got out of there because she had because the place burned down.
Yeah,
In a
with
great
her father
fire
in it.
scene.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So she was out on her own, man. Her and Chico, two girls against the world, and she meets this old professor who was like, "Darling, you're beautiful."
He was
Read
also kind of he was
Nietzsche.
in the first scene as sort of like he was introduced as sort of like the older, grandfather figure, gentlemanly type, like the only man who had a positive influence in her life. That's kind of the vibe you
he's the
get.
script mentor.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Meaning that there's always like a wise mentor for the lead character in a movie. And it's him in this one.
Yeah,
he's
the script
he's
mentor.
the oracle, and he introduces her to
Nietzsche.
Yeah, but I think it was The Will to Power. That was the book, The Will to Power. And Nietzsche didn't die too long before that, and he was probably a virgin when he died. I guess people didn't know that at the time because she got this book and she like uses sex to get what she wants, to climb up the ladder with Chico, and she does it, and it starts from the bottom. She's the bottom, and gets her way onto a freight car to get out of town. She has to sleep with the dude for that, and then she sleeps with another the guy at the employment agency, but she did it connivingly. Like she knew what she was doing with this and this, and she played the wounded bird, kind of like in the trailer, to get men to do what she wanted, and they were all so eager to get there. I just like that singularity of motion. But then she goes up the ladder and gets a job in the office, and then every time she sleeps with a new dude, you see an exterior shot of the building, and the camera goes like this, and then she does it again. The camera goes like this. That's just another creative way of how to do visual storytelling, because these back in the studios, they all had the facilities themselves. So if you need this, you need that. They probably already had models of a building already, so they just did the exteriors there, and there was a bunch of them actually too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that imagery of each climbing each floor, and she's in each window has the sign for a new department on it. It's just this really, like, I don't know, it's so kind of almost kind of like
obvious.
gaudy, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
almost
she's like
obvious.
it's basically
It's
a
like-
visual representation of a woman
Yeah.
sleeping her way to the top. You know,
That's why they call it up the ladder, I guess.
or
Maybe
climbing
that
the
term
corporate ladder.
existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it existed because of this movie. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
But I
that was a time when people joined a company in you know, an entry level position as young men and stayed with the company and oftentimes worked there for the company their entire lives and worked their way up literally up the ladder, so to speak.
Yeah.
I just thought that was nuts. And I love the Art Deco. I love the costumes. And it wasn't realistic, which I just enjoy that stuff because you don't see that nowadays. And even with the equipment and like whatever else, it's filmed different. They don't have a lot of lenses. They don't have a telephoto lenses wasn't invented until like the 50s or whatever. And just the way they show it. And it's another reason why I like silent films, because it kind of looks like a dream. Like some silent films are awesome, you know, the ones that are really good, but it just kind of seems like a dream, and you're in there. And that's what I really liked about it a lot. Even the black and white kind of helps me get engrossed because I like focus out the color world and like get in and like get into that. And I also enjoyed how socially up to date this movie is. Like I was watching this and I'm thinking, hey, they should play this in theaters now, just because of the ending. It all comes together in the end. But let me go back to the beginning where she's sleeping with her department manager, and she does this whole cat and mouse game with the bathroom, and she left the ladies' door open, and she was in there, and he got in there or something, and she got caught, and then she didn't even have to sleep with him. She just said, he sexually harassed me and it's immoral. So do something about it.
Did you really? Yeah, but did you really think the implication was that she didn't sleep with him? I think the implication is that she slept with every single one of these men.
Yeah, because he shows up later and he's like, I need you and my wife.
Yeah.
And
the guy catches him. His superior catches him.
Yeah.
Coming out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was the guy in the trailer. If I don't love you, that's the guy who killed himself.
No, it's not that guy.
That's later.
Not that guy?
That's the guy that shows up in the rain.
There's a lot of men to keep track of in this film.
Yeah, and he's like, even if I'm with my wife and 3 children, I don't know if he says that, but he has a wife and 3 children, and he just can't stop thinking about her. And I'm thinking, God, is this woman like the most amazing thing in bed, or just are they depicting that like women just didn't? I don't know. It's just it has this quality that is a little bit. I feel like it's a little bit far fetched, right? That she's got this like what is she, like a witch? But yet I like it, and I'm just gonna like skip to the ending. You know, I like the fact. Sorry, I like the fact that it had like a sort of moral ending.
Yeah,
you know, which it reminded me a lot of like the TV shows that I had growing up. You know, where it's like this tacky storyline, but then there's like, okay, well, you know, the theme of the episode is like we don't steal from our friends. You know, and it's sort of
you know, but to give the guys who made this film some credit, it didn't originally have that ending.
No,
they edited it, and
really?
yeah, it's one of the only things. It's like one of the only. This is the thing that's a little confusing to me. So they edited this movie way down from what it was that we just saw. We saw more or less the original that they intended to show in the theaters, but they cut a bunch of stuff out of the version that we saw, from what I understand, from the one that was shown in the theaters. And it was even still even after that a scandal. Now, the ending somehow that was like, I guess, one of the things that it wasn't a cut or I think it was maybe even in pre-shooting, like I think it was in the script. They made them change it before they shot it. But originally they were just going to have him commit suicide too and die and ended there basically with a cold-hearted woman. Like that's how they wanted to make the movie originally. But, you know, it's one of those things where I think either one of the endings would have worked, but in a certain sense, not even from a censor standpoint, but from a commercial standpoint, I think, Judy, you're right. This is the fact that they ended it that way, even though it's sort of cheesy with the money falling out of her bag. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter now.
Like,
because it's so cheesy.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah, but she still needs the money to help him with his court case.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter now. I mean, it just seems so silly, but
Yeah.
Let me-
Now I read a quick article that said that the ending says that there's something where there's people talking and they talk about the couple and he ends up getting a job as like a laborer in a factory in Pennsylvania and they're poor but together. And I was like, I didn't see that. Mine was just like the money fell and she's like, it doesn't matter.
That's the one I saw too.
To be
Okay.
honest, I really think there's still a lot of mystery. There's a lot of stuff I've read about this film that
Okay.
is contradictory. And
Okay.
so one of the things that I just discovered before we went live, which I didn't even know before, was that the unedited version that we've had the pleasure of seeing, the pre-cut version, was discovered
Yes.
is much later. It was discovered in 2004. It was in an archive somewhere, and that's why when it was restored recently, it's in such pristine condition. And the restoration that we saw, or the print that we saw, looks the way it does because it was basically just sitting quietly in a
It was a good. It was a good
archive somewhere, and it was
Mm.
just I guess remastered or whatever.
You know, I heard Martin Scorsese say that half the movies before 1950 are gone forever because they just didn't really need to keep them. They weren't conserved with cataloging. They just had to make a new one. But just to talk
Yeah.
about the ending again, that's another thing why I like these films too, because the writers, they had to work it out or they're fired. So they worked it out and they turned this movie into her finding love. In the last 20 seconds, the whole
Basically,
movie you saw
yeah.
is a woman finding love. And just to tell the viewers that, so her husband, you know, he gets in trouble. He needs money. She can't give up the money because she's slept with all these dudes for all this money. He attempts suicide, gets put into an ambulance. Then she realizes how much she loved him in the ambulance, and she has the little case of all her jewels. The jewels fall down, it spill over. The ambulance guy says, "Hey, lady, you might want to get that." And she's like, "It doesn't matter now. I have him now that he's stable." They made him stable and stuff. So that whole thing we saw was a love story, and that's just why I like that stuff too, because the story can change, and that's fine.
I mean, with all the
think about
pressures
one
that these
thing at a
filmmakers had to please their audiences on the budgets that they had,
but then it
please
makes the
their
movie a love
audiences on-
story and not like
and
like
then
an
to deal with
thriller.
to deal with all the pressures from the censors and the back and the forth and the this and the that,
Yeah.
and how do we make everyone happy? You know,
Yeah.
there's something to be said for the creativity that's required of these studio
Yeah.
people to pull this thing together and make it work, and then
Yeah.
still make
Or
it
you're
a film
fired.
that's interesting for us to watch almost 100 years later. Michael,
Yeah,
can
and
you
I wanted
believe
to
that?
add one comment that I was thinking earlier. I was talking to someone, and they were saying that one thing that they were looking for, and this is where it goes back to modern times. One thing they were looking for in a relationship was a partner who could sort of push them and confront them, make them confront things within themselves. And if you notice throughout the whole movie with everybody, she's constantly like, they'll just do whatever she wants. And then when she meets the man that she falls in love with in the one bank scene, and she's doing her whole thing of like, oh, well, I just want to have a job and I just want to, you know, have a simple life and get out of here and change my name and all this stuff. And so all the guys are sort of like, yeah, okay. But then he sort of looks at her and he gets it. And he goes, oh, is that really what you want? Okay, we're going to get you a ticket. And she knows, like, so he's sort of, they're matching the wavelength there. And he is sort of like confronting her with herself. And so she's like, oh, shit. And
He's
so
like
it's like, of
challenging her.
course, so I love how looking back at that, they put that there because it did catch me off guard because I was like, oh, yeah, okay, they're just going to give her the money. But then they switched it there. And so it's sort of like, you know, it seemed almost predictable. I'm like, well, why would he then go and love her? He knows who she is. But so I sort of liked the predictability of it, but I feel like they did it in such a way that I was like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. I like it. You know.
You know, that's really interesting, Judy. I kind of sense that too. There was like a tremendous amount of honesty in their love affair, and
Mhm.
I think it's interesting, only like going back now and looking back on it, that the love affair started in the boardroom
Yeah.
when he decided that he was going to, that she was going to meet her match in him. And I
Yeah.
guess what really happened is that they kind of met their match in each other. And like, honestly, like, that is what it is. Like, he was the first guy to call her on her bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, and as a result of that, she was the first guy the first and only guy that she could ever actually trust and love.
He saw her for who she was,
Yeah,
and
he saw her
they
for
did that when she played the record, and she played, and I was
All
like,
the
is this
yeah.
voiceover on the record or is it? But there was a voiceover of him saying, "I know you've had men before me, but I don't care," like something like that. It was a little bit longer, but it was like in that moment you knew that like he was basically saying to her, "Listen, I know who you are. I get
I
it.
accept you.
I
I
like you
accept
anyway. I love you anyway." And I'm curious now that I'm thinking about it. Why was he being arrested at the end? Like, was it just so he married her? But I feel like I missed something in the plot line
I think
of
what
what did
happened
he
was
do?
there was like financial pressures on the bank to begin with, and then there was some kind of the fact that he was involved with her created like a bigger scandal for the bank, and they were trying to find an excuse to get rid of him.
Okay.
I think, but
I don't know. But then it
I don't
makes me
remember.
wonder too, and maybe I'm just putting it onto the thing, is it if she took advantage of men and he took advantage of the financial system, and then they just sort of like found each other
It
and
could have
didn't
been
care
that
anymore.
he could have
I
made
don't know.
some mistakes and screwed things up as a
I
as a
remember
chairman
Yeah,
of
I
the
don't know.
board.
I remember
Or
he
it could
was
not
like
be clear that there might have just been some kind of financial crisis, and I don't remember. I mean, I might
no,
be missing something there.
it was clear, but it was like a throwaway line. I remember he was taking the fall for her
Is that what
for
happened?
something. I don't even know. But
This is
Or
like,
was he
you'd be
taking a
surprised
fall
with
for
it.
the bank?
A 74-minute film. There's a lot of detail in this movie.
Yeah.
There is.
And there's a lot of things that I didn't retain just watching it once, and it's definitely a movie that stays with you, and it bears like a multiple viewings. I think I'll probably end up going back and watching
They
it
should
again.
play this in sex education.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this. I still remember Mrs. Harden in my sex and family class, and the things she said to those girls, I was like, yo, you're getting rid of all my tricks. Because I mean, I won't get into it, but okay, I'll get into it. So Mrs. Harden was butch.
Wait, Mrs. Harden was the sex teacher?
Yeah, her name was Mrs. Harden, and she was married to a gym
I'm just
teacher. She was married to a gym teacher named Mr. Harden, and he was a doofus, and she was butch. And it was a strange match, but they were married, they had kids and stuff, and she taught sex and family, and she was butch, short hair. Anyway, she all but said, to the girls, she all but said, make your boyfriends go down on you. That's what she all but said that, as opposed to sex. She said, just make him go down on you. It's fine. Like, she all but said that. And she put a diaphragm on my head once. It's like, it could be a little hat. And she put it on my head. And I was like, yo, I remember her. God. Anyway, but my point is, if you play,
see, this is why I knew adults were full of shit from the time I was like 3 years old. Stuff like that.
Well, it's like, you can't, like, to the girl, the message to a woman is like, you can use your sexual proclivity to get what you want. Thank you. To get what you want. But A, you're not going to be happy in the end. And B, it showed you how to find true love is like, you got to find somebody who accepts you, and then you accept them, and then view them as the real treasure, not material items. And I think that's an important lesson too. And even around this time, because the next year was Frank Capra with It Happened One Night, which had a little sexual tones, but Frank Capra was like the moral pillar of Hollywood. And so I think, it was like kind of weird how that happened there too, because it was a sexually erotic film for 1933, even for like 1953. But it still had that moral message in the end, which I think is like how you could get away with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think you need a smart society to understand that. And I think I'm just going to be blunt on a lot of people. I think the true meaning that we're talking about would probably be lost, and people would be like, "Oh, you just sleep your way to the top. Great." Oh,
You know,
And then you
you
get a
think
I don't
that
husband
know.
in the
do you
end.
Maybe I'm
think
just a
people at the
downer, but
time do you think people at the time didn't understand how banal and silly the movie was, though, in a lot of ways?
oh,
I
I don't
think
know.
they
I'm just
did.
saying
I think they
now.
did, and that's a reason why they enjoyed it, because
Yeah, I
the
think
female
the people
viewer-
that watched this movie and enjoyed it probably experienced it very similarly to the way we did when we watched it and enjoyed it. You know, was that like you watch this, you see this girl, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's sort of there are women like that, and and those reasons behind it are like they're honest to a degree, like, and we like everybody probably knew a girl like that. I've known girls like that. But is this an actually like a realistic depiction, or is it a cartoonish depiction? Yeah, it's a cartoonish depiction, but you
Mhm.
know, that is kind of
exaggerated.
my take, exaggerated. But but um but I don't think it, you know, I think it has a lot of like nuggets of truth in it, you know,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
I, excuse me. I wanted to get to this director's work, and I looked him up.
Mm,
100 films. He directed 100 films.
wow.
So I
that's
don't
what
know
it
if I
was
can.
back then.
Yeah, it was a motor. Even D.W. Griffith back in the day, who he created the 3-act structure, he made about 480 films
Wow.
in his time. I love all that stuff, honestly.
I feel
I
like
would
they
just
just really understood storytelling.
yeah. It wasn't so artsy because they weren't artists.
They had to
They
understand
would have cards.
storytelling because they didn't have so many bells and whistles for so many
Yeah.
generations to be able to like just kind of, you know, it's like they didn't have the medium is the message kind of thing going
Right.
on back then
It
because
wasn't
the medium
artistic.
was new. So the message was the storytelling, which is what it's always been for all of human history until really the modern time. Like the idea of the medium being the message and being able to make
Yeah.
art that wasn't story
They
or
couldn't just
wasn't
blow
oriented
shit
around the
up.
story. Yeah, or yeah, exactly.
Or CGI
Yeah.
Yeah,
or killing people.
I mean, yeah, basically, I don't think, you know, we haven't had entertainment like what we're seeing today since probably you'd have to go back to like the Roman Colosseum or something to see that kind of just, I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
like
blood and
storytelling. What I
guts.
mean is storytelling has always been like the has always had primacy in our like human
Yeah.
culture
It
from the
seems.
campfire to
Oh,
throughout
right.
all of human history. And so like, yeah, but back then they were much tighter with their storytelling structure for sure.
Yeah. No, I
I
do like
think
that. I had a writing teacher once that said, I forget what it was like. I can't remember which year it was, but something like about there being no really good movies after, I want to say like 1983. Maybe Sean would know. But just
No,
something about the no, just something maybe not no, but like filmmaking shifted, and it's just
shifts.
not
There's
what it
trends and
was.
stuff. There's trends and new technology.
No.
People want to play with new toys. In the 90s, it was disaster films.
Okay.
You know,
Could have been
before
93. I feel like there was a 3 in it. It was either 83 or 93.
well,
Might have been
93 was
93.
Schindler's List. Well, 93 was Schindler's List. So he
Okay.
probably so that was it. Schindler's List. Everything else is crap after that. After that, I guess
It
maybe.
could have been that. I don't know. I just remember it was
Like,
always like no good films after 93.
but what I like about storytelling back then in the 30s and 40s in the star system is that they knew the story was a product. Now it's all about the auteur's expression. You know, everybody's Fellini. I'm not a Fellini fan. Everybody's Fellini. They want to be the new Quentin Tarantino. I get it. I get it. Or Kubrick. I get it. But back then they knew it was a product and they were trying to sell tickets. And that's just another point of view, kind of like Dream a Little Dream. It was like another point of view to take into the storytelling. And I kind of like that because it's more of a collaboration. It's like I get Quentin Tarantino, but all his movies are kind of the same. I don't want to, be a jerk, but they're kind of the same. And Kevin Smith, that's fine. But I really enjoyed the collaboration and seeing how all these notes and actors and story and time it was released is important too. How that all kind of like melds together.
I will defend in defense of in defense of Quentin Tarantino. I think he can do whatever he wants because he is such a great storyteller and he's so entertaining. I think the number one rule is that like you have to entertain. And
Yeah.
but he, to me, that's why I think he's kind of an exception to that, because he's such a student of film. Like
He
Mhm.
is.
he loves every era and every genre. And I've never heard Quentin Tarantino say one bad thing about a single movie or
Yeah.
movie
True.
maker. Like,
That's
this is
true.
clearly a man
That's true.
who loves movies, right?
That's he
So,
never says a movie sucked.
no, I've
That's
never heard him
true.
say a movie. He loves
neither.
everything. He's just like one big ball of love, and he admires. He's like a fucking nerd history, but like, this is like, I mean, in a sense, I think in the spirit of this show, I'll always defend him, because this is a guy who's just like a lover of all cinema. Now, but he's an outlier, and I will say, as much as I am like a big fan of Kubrick, and I think he's a genius, and I also love Fellini, I agree with you. They don't quite cut it in terms of being fixated on entertaining the audience as the number one thing that you're supposed to do, telling them a story that they love. And that is a very modern idea. I think it's interesting. I don't really have a moral stance on that phenomenon. I think I see that as being they're products of their time, but I do agree with you that any genre of art that stops caring about entertaining its audience is not going to last very long.
Yeah.
Any storytelling medium that somebody tries to write a story in that doesn't have a good story in it, that's not going to last either. People, like, there's only so many Michael Bay explosions or stupid gimmicks or whatever you can point this out from the time you're talking about, 50s and really the 50s and 60s to the present day. Artists in filmmaking have been able to get away with not telling good stories. They've been able to get away with it. And I don't think that's not gonna continue much longer. I don't think, because you can see what's already happening with television. People don't. If you can't make an episode that makes people hungry to see the next episode, you lose. You're done. So TV is in competition with movies now, and movies have to make movie makers have to make films that are going to make people want to go see that movie again. And
like Top Gun Maverick. I want to give that a shot. I haven't seen that.
I've heard good things about it.
Me too, man. I just saw a video commentary about it. I watched Filmento, I recommend that channel. He really knows what he's talking about. So every time I get his stuff. But also, let me just say this: Barbara Stanwyck, after this, 12 years later, was in Double Indemnity, and she was still hot.
Oh yeah, Double Indemnity, man. That's a good one.
Well, how old was she when she did this movie?
20. She was 25 and then 26 when it was released.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So I was gonna say she had a lot of makeup on, so I feel like you could have told me she was 20, and I would have been like, okay, or she could have been like 35.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I don't know.
was going to guess 20.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, she was.
But back then, actors, they would have cards of what they could do, and that would be their ID card, and they would audition in like whatever else. They might have a bungalow. They would get roles by being chummy with this guy or that guy, or maybe sleeping around, and then they would get used like a baseball team. And even the writers had it worse because there was more writers. They each had a bungalow and drank like Barton Fink, and they try to get their stuff sold. Or if a producer says, this is hot, I want this, then the writer has to go and do it. And there was a system to build a story that they all knew instinctively from prior failures. And they try to do like the opposite to build like the story to shine the message, or else they'd be fired. And I just kind of like the pressure of that. I just always enjoy that. Even like Fred Astaire, his card. I remember reading it once. It was like, can barely act, barely sing, can dance, and I just thought that was just nuts that they took everybody and reduced them down to stats like they were a baseball player, and they did all this trading and like whatever else. I just thought that was nuts. Yeah, I wish that was back. Humphrey Bogart ruined that for everybody.
No, but listen, you have certain little clusters of great directors, writer directors that have that same proclivity to kind of create an ensemble sort of team that they rotate around with. I think I know you're not a huge P.T. Anderson guy. I have gone back and forth, but his latest film has really blew me away. So you know,
And I
he's one of
heard
those
in-
guys.
I heard
I
Inherent
think
Vice
David
is-
Mamet is another. David Mamet's another one. Woody Allen is another one. You know, these guys all kind of had their, because film exploded and you had a much bigger, much larger audiences, much more people, and more films coming out, and you know, you start to have these like kind of, I wouldn't call it, they're not low budget, they're not high budget, they're that sort of middle range stuff where they're making films and they're working with tight groups of people, actors that they kind of consistently put in their movies.
There's so many movies. I got head deep into Tubi. There's so many
there's
movies.
So many.
Since Cockfighter, I average 2 movies a day, and I'm not kidding. Yeah,
that's
I watched
crazy.
a lot, man.
I gotta investigate Tubi a little more. Well, listen, I don't want to take up too much more time with this. Do you guys have any last words?
No, the only thing I want to say is about the whole card thing. I'm just like, wow, I almost kind of wish that they had that now, because I just love the transparency of that. I feel like people need some thicker skin, because like everybody thinks they're an actor. Like I'm sorry, but like people get on like YouTube and like get like a bunch of people who watch them because they like jump off a building, you know. And I'm not trying to knock like that one show, I forget what, Jackass. But like,
I was going to say,
people
Johnny,
just
no one did it better.
We're in the influencer generation, so like everybody's an actor, everybody's a singer, but you know, you use EQ. And I sort of like, there's a part of me that just longs for people to be like real, like just be like, I can't sing, I can't act, I'm an awesome dancer, instead of being like, I'm a triple threat and I'm awesome and I have 1 million followers. So you're gonna, you know what I mean? Like, I just really,
how many followers do you have?
Yeah, I just really like
and everything
that.
Like, everything seems like people are just trying too hard.
Like it's
and it's like there's this undercurrent of like, it's just so fake and false, and people are trying to just like it, and it is people trying to climb the ladder. It's just a modern digital ladder. It's just different, you know, but it's the same bullshit. But just, I don't know, just when you said that card thing, I'm just like, yes, can we just like go back to like people being real? And I think that people even want that. I don't know. Maybe someone needs to like make a movie about
also,
it.
if they don't take $10 million salaries, then that's more for the budget too. As you know, that too. Humphrey Bogart was the first guy to be like, no, you want me in this? $1 million. And back then that was a lot. They're like, you're ridiculous, but they did it. And then more people started doing it too, because back then you go to Columbia, go to RKO, get out of here. This is Warner Brothers.
Well, I think they're going. I mean, stars are losing. They've been losing their superpowers for like claiming like the millions of dollars for a while, because people, especially with television, like people don't care anymore. If you have a really compelling story, I mean, the name will still sell. I feel like a lot of the film festivals, like when you see independent films, this is like, I feel like I'm on my pet peeve tonight. When you go to like these independent film festivals, you're not seeing like true B films of like these upcoming filmmakers with like no name actors. You're seeing basically like a star on their independent project because
what you're seeing now, it's even worse or better than that, depending on how you want to look at it. It's just not, I think it's just not that at all. I think what you're seeing today is a group of so-called independent filmmakers coming in to the territory that Miramax used to occupy, that is like a vacuum right now, right? So you have no more Miramax, you have no more Harvey Weinstein. So now you have A24, that's a low-budget independent producer that is actually a multi-billion-dollar company.
And they make good films. I saw.
They do. They make great films, and you know. So, but it's not what it's not. But they don't make low budget films. That's the thing. They don't make simple stories with people you've never heard of. They make pretty high production value films, and that's a testament to what's happening with technology as well, which is that the technology required to make a simple, decent looking film is cheaper and cheaper every day, and so that means that people with relatively smaller budgets, they can make like a high budget looking film for a medium budget, as opposed to what they used to. I mean, a lot of these A20, like how much, like, okay, Midsummer is one of the most famous A24 films, or Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems cost like $20 million to make. It wasn't a cheap film,
Yeah.
But it had Adam Sandler starring in it. Midsummer was also probably close to about $20 million. Doesn't have a shit ton of bells and whistles in it. I mean, you have some
That's
interesting
pretty.
pyrotechnics. You have this, it's long. You have a scene where guys are being lit on fire. You have
Yeah.
really beautiful, ornate set design and stuff like that. Like they're going into a lot of stuff. But you know, it's not a cheap film, but it's not like an ass load of money, but it's still incredibly visually impressive and innovative. You know, it's not an indie, and I just don't think that it deserves to be these kinds of movies. I don't think they deserve to be called indie films. I think I would like to see people who are creative storytellers, creative writers, and just people who are really literally trying to make great art. And do it themselves with a small budget and a small crew. And I would like to see that happen.
Where's our
movie?
movie?
Have a 60-minute movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have a 60-minute movie.
I have 2 child actors who can come with me.
Hey, Judy, we can
we've
kick
got
around
you,
ideas.
Judy.
Judy, we can kick around ideas.
We're at 55-minute mark now.
I know.
I'm really glad that we did for the first time we did a movie that's so old.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll do more older films in the future that are obscure. But I want to give Sean the floor now to tell us about next week's selection.
Okay, I'm going to do a 1989 theme. My previous selection was Dream a Little Dream 89. My next selection is the science fiction version of 1989. It's called Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. This movie is famously bad. I don't know why. I always liked it, and I'm going to defend it with respect next week. What I do like about this, it was directed by William Shatner. There was a production hell.
Wait, you're saying you think it was really bad, or other people thought it was really bad?
Other people
liked it. Right?
Other people hate it. I always liked it. I rewatched it like last year because I remember liking it, and I still liked it. I'm going to watch it again because I think it's wonderful.
All right, let's show
it's a different thing. And every movie in the Star Trek double trilogy is a different type of movie. And this movie is the obscure movie of the double trilogy, which is why I'm choosing it for this. And Seth is a Star Trek fan, and that's why I want to defend it, or I'm a fan too.
I'm growing up, like it was one of the bonding experiences that I had with my father. Like the silent bonding experiences was, he would sit and watch Star Trek. And I would try to understand what the hell was going on. I mean, I'm talking like when I was 5 years old. So I have vivid memories of Star Trek from a very young age. I even remember being taken to the theater to see one of the movies. It might have been this one for all I know, because I was maybe 5, 6, 7 years old. And I still I didn't understand. I could never follow the plots and whatever. And then later in life, I kind of got into Star Trek, and I thought it was like the more heady version. It was of Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Trek was for like the more heady people, and
Me
Star
too.
Wars
I was always
just
Star
for
Trek.
I like both, but you know, I get like, I think the Star Trek one is definitely more like psychologically stimulating. But I think I saw this, but I literally don't remember at all. So I'm looking forward to it, and maybe I'll rewatch it with my dad. And maybe he can jump on as a guest. I don't know. All right, let's play some of the trailer for the audience.
From a relaxing vacation on Earth.
Greetings, Captain.
That's a wig.
I do not think you realize the gravity of your situation.
Shatner has a wig.
Get it? Gravity.
Reaches of space.
Look at this. This is wonderful. This is great.
Only one crew dare travel where no man has ever gone before.
I even like the narration.
All the power you can muster, mister.
On a desolate planet, a renegade Vulcan seeks ultimate knowledge.
To find it, we'll need a starship.
And he will stop at nothing to get it.
I dreamt that a madman had taken over the Enterprise.
You look like you've just seen a ghost.
Perhaps I have, Captain. Our destination is the planet Shakari. At the center of the galaxy.
The center of the galaxy can't be reached.
If you ask me, and you haven't, I think this is a terrible idea. We're bound to bump into the Klingons.
And there they are.
Remain on course.
To Kirk, he's a fanatic to be fought.
You know we'll never make it through the Great Barrier.
I say the danger is an illusion.
To the crew, he's a mystic to be followed.
Cybok has simply put us in touch with feelings that we've always been afraid.
I have to get back to the transporter.
To Spock, he's the past he must confront.
Shoot him!
You know I'm Spock, my only concern is getting the ship back. And you're either with me or you're not.
Put him in the brig with Captain Kirk.
I'm a prisoner on my own ship.
What are you standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one?
Mr. Scott, you're amazing.
There's nothing amazing about it. I know this ship like the back of my hand.
Emergency channel open.
A hostile force has taken control of our vessel. Put us on a direct course with the Great Barrier.
Understood, Enterprise. We are dispatching a rescue ship immediately.
They're in trouble.
Bird of prey bearing 105, Mark II.
Let me do something. Mr. Sulu, full ahead. Transfer power to warp drive. Warp speed now.
The greatest enterprise of all is adventure. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
I'm excited. Directed by
Yeah.
William Shatner.
And starring too.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, I'm excited also. I think it's interesting. It's one of those action films that was critically panned, but like actually audiences still loved it. It didn't do great in the theaters, but that's not because people didn't like it. A lot of that was other reasons, but we'll get into all that.
Do I have to
89 was a
watch the
tough year.
4 before?
No, you don't. You don't. I promise you don't.
Okay. I was
They're
never
all
a
different.
Trekkie.
This is an easy pill to swallow.
No,
with
I
this
enjoyed
movie.
watching the trailer.
I'm just saying
I was
it's
like, is it a
1980.
comedy?
It's always they have
Kinda.
it has comedy. Yeah,
It's
Shatner's like
lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
It is lighthearted, and I
yeah.
could-
Shatner
I'll
hadn't been part
explain.
of the cast of Star Trek for a long time at this point, right?
No, he was always Kirk. The 3 seasons on TV and the 6 movies, and then he did another one.
Well, wait, okay, but when did the Next Generation start?
That was 87 to 94.
Oh, okay.
So Next Generation was on the air when this movie was in
But
theaters.
Shatner wasn't on the Next Generation.
No.
Yeah,
Not
so he
until
wasn't in
Star
that-
Trek Generations in 1994. They put the 2 captains together.
Oh, that's right.
I know my Star Trek. I can do
I
this
believe.
all
Hey,
night.
I'm not challenging you at all.
Me and Seth knows a lot too. Even though he hates this movie, he warned me not to recommend it because he didn't want to watch it. He hates it, but it's
Yeah, I don't know, we'll see.
wonderful. That's the music. Okay.
I'm
Is
looking
it safe
forward
for
to it.
children?
Yes.
I
No
think
boobs.
so, yeah.
No boobs. And
This
there's
was supposed to
violence,
be a
but there's not
family
blood.
film that was going to come out during the holidays. Like
Yeah,
What's
there's
it
no
rated?
Thanksgiving movie.
It's
Probably
like
rated
PG-13.
PG. I don't think
There's-
it's even that.
There's violence, but there's no
Violence,
blood.
maybe.
But there's no
Oh.
blood. There's like people falling down from a laser blast. That's not.
I might try to watch it with my daughter. We'll see. My son won't. He'll just be like, "Oh, look, lights."
It's
Why does
goofy.
Yeah.
It doesn't say the rating on Wikipedia. Huh.
I love this movie so much. Honestly, I could get into it. I almost want to get into it now. It's
Well,
all right, but
we got to watch it first. But
Judy,
Actually, yeah.
A24,
Anyway.
A24 made a movie called Woman Walk Ahead. It's a Western. It was 2018 with
all right,
Jessica
let's
Chastain.
end the live stream and we
Oh,
can
okay.
keep going. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Please
and subscribe.
like this video, subscribe to our channel, Obscuria Filmcast, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.